Means Committee meeting for the town of Kiowa Island for the date of January 7th, 2025. May we all stand and have a pledge of allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the Thank you. Petra, could I get you to do the roll call, please?
Chairman Farrell.
Here.
Mayor Belt.
Here.
Mr. Spencer.
Here.
Ms. Tillerson. Here. Ms. Schubert. Here.
Okay, the first agenda item is the approval of the minutes for the Ways and Means Committee meeting of November 5th. Are there any edits or additions to the minutes?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then they are approved. Citizen comments. Seems like we have none. So we'll move to old business. This is to review and recommend to the town council employee medical insurance premium structure.
Yeah.
That's what you just gave me. I thought that was,
That's the old,
sorry.
no? Huh.
I didn't think there was any old business, right? Okay, thank you. I just threw that away. All right, so no old business. Let's move on to new business. To review and recommend the purchase of traffic monitoring devices.
Welcome back. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Ways and Means Committee. So today, I'm going to be talking to you guys about some traffic monitoring and speed monitoring equipment for the Kiowa Island Parkway and Beachwalker Drive. The Public Works Department is looking to install speed projection signs and portable digital signage, as well as traffic monitoring equipment along the Kiowa Island Parkway and Beachwalker Drive. Over the past fall/winter, we installed some speed monitoring equipment just to kind of gauge what the speed and traffic was looking like, particularly along the parkway. And we did find that there was definitely some speeding going on along the parkway, and we thought that it would be a good idea to implement some equipment similar to what the community association has behind the gate that will digitally project the speed of vehicles that are traveling along that corridor and on Beachwalker Drive. The equipment is from a company called Stalker Dynamics, and they actually have a contract with Charleston County. They provide all of that equipment for the county. So we know that they're a reliable company, and that they're local around here with their equipment. And the equipment will also be solar powered, which we think will be really helpful to have out there, not only from an application standpoint, but from a green initiative standpoint as well. So we are looking to get 3 of the speed projection signs that will tell you the speed that you're going, and that will also flash if you reach a certain threshold of speed to make you aware that you're going in excess of a certain threshold. We're also looking to get a message board that will be implemented kind of as needed, and this message board has the capabilities of putting up any kind of messaging that we want motorists to know. That could be something of, there's an event, so please beware of traffic. There is construction going on, please beware of potentially backup traffics ahead, and also it can project speed as well too. And then the last piece of equipment are going to be their stealth boxes, which are just little tiny boxes that you would attach to an existing post that will record speed and traffic volume. So that can be something that we use kind of as needed if we just wanted to monitor a certain area, or if there's a certain time of year that we wanted to put these up and just get traffic information, we can put those out and bring those back in and get some data pretty quickly instead of having to go through a third party to do that. We have the attached quotes for each of those pieces of equipment that you all have that you can take a look at. I'm sure you already have. So the staff is requesting that the Ways and Means Committee recommend the purchase of this equipment to the town council from Stalker Radar Applied Concepts. As far as financial data, we sent this request to the state tax committee back in November, and the state tax committee did recommend funding of $25,163 that was ultimately approved by the Ways and Means Committee and the town council. So we have $25,000 from the state tax committee going towards this, and the difference that we are asking for today is $12,259.43, and that would be funded through the general fund. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the equipment or application if you all have any.
Questions?
One question, and I hadn't focused on this previously. John isn't here, but maybe Stephanie or you know. Would this, the little boxes, obviate the need to pay separately for collecting, to put the cables across to collect data on vehicle traffic, the amount of vehicle traffic? Because these devices will capture vehicle traffic.
Yes, sir. They could certainly, the idea would be to not need a third party at this point. Now, I will say we would have a few of these boxes, and they're battery operated. They last about 7 or 8 days, so we would capture a week's worth of traffic at a time. So outside of that time frame, it might be.
That's fine. I make the point that I hadn't really thought about before, that this is actually a cost savings measure, because I think we were paying close to $20,000 a year previously. That had been reduced to more recently to under $10,000, but we were paying twice a year or annually to collect data.
Yes, sir.
We don't need to use that service provider anymore.
Correct. This has the same capabilities of what we were previously using.
I have a couple comments and questions.
Yes,
First
sir.
of all, I love this initiative. I live on Beachwalker, as I think everybody knows. And even in the crosswalk, often almost get run down. Especially in the summer, we see construction vehicles, all kinds of stuff. So I think anything that reinforces to somebody who's in whatever headspace they're in, oh, I'm speeding, will help. And, maybe reduce risk to traffic and pedestrians. I think you intend to put one of these also as people are exiting the main gate. Is that correct, coming onto Keel Island Parkway?
Yes, sir. We have some ideas of where we would put them, but we would certainly confirm that those are the locations that we want to put those up. That is one of the locations that we would put those.
And the reason I ask, and I don't know if I've commented publicly on this or not, but I am fine with the fact that the association took the stop sign out. I understand the reason for that, but my experience turning onto Keel Island Parkway several times a day is people are stomping on it. And something that reinforces that. And I even get perspective. I lived in Germany for almost 5 years and had a German driver's license, so I know how to drive. And I have a hard time merging more times than not. This morning I almost got run over by a blue pickup truck. So,
Right.
I think that will help. And I like that you're doing the traffic data like the mayor mentioned, and I like that you've got the more flexible thing that can do, time-sensitive kinds of messaging. I've got a question. I know it's probably a technicality, and I really don't want to be a speed bump in approving this, but I do want to ask, was the I didn't see the RFP, I saw the quotes. Was the requirement for stalker speed measuring devices or for speed measuring devices? And the reason I ask is the letters of sole source say we're the only ones that sell our product. So that's like Chevy saying I'm the only one that sells a Chevy truck.
Right. So we reached out to Stalker. Well, so I met Stalker at
And
a
I like that
conference
the sheriff's office
last year.
has that endorsement and all that too. But.
Right. So I met Stalker at a conference last year, and this was kind of at the genesis of us looking into speed monitoring equipment and traffic volume collection on the Parkway and Beachwalker Drive. And then once they, some subsequent conversation led to, we provide all the equipment for CCSO in Charleston County. We just kind of rolled with them. So they are a leader in this industry. And given the fact that they provide equipment all over Charleston County is how we went with them.
I believe they are the sole source provider to Charleston County, or is that not
They
correct?
are a sole source provider to Charleston County.
Okay,
Yes.
that's helpful.
Just a little bit of additional context. This really grew out of all of the issues related to safety issues along the Mingo Curve. And it was, after we had put in the traffic management buttons and removed those, that we both put up our own devices, but also CSO put up one of their boards for a week. And the data was very disconcerting coming from both in terms of the amount of speeding that had occurred. What CCSO noted, their data will show you, and what they can tell you is the devices do work to slow people down. Not guaranteed, but human behavior is such, you see that flashing and telling you you're going too fast. People do slow it down. So that really the focus is trying to say is people are exiting the island, and then coming into the Mingo Curve is where the thought is the principal places to place those now. But I did want to ask a question. They don't have to be permanently fixed in a spot. You could relocate those if you choose to do so.
We could, but since they're solar powered, they're not hardwired to anything, so we could move those around if we saw fit to do so.
So explain to me what this looks like. Is it one of those orange trailers with the sign on it, or is it something just attaches to the speed limit sign?
It's a post, so the speed limit projection signs
Do you not have the
of
images?
which we would, Petra has pictures of them that we can put up. But they're the same signs basically that the community association has. They're a traffic post with that kind of 18 by 12 screen that projects your speed, that also has the flashing lights that will go off once you pass a certain threshold. So they're not trailer mounted, they're post mounted.
One going into Keogh River as you drive into the Dunlin that flashes if you're over 25. It actually flashes if you're at 25 too. But
Okay. Yeah, we want you to
Maybe they
go
need to adjust that.
under 25. Yeah, so the only trailer is that message board trailer that is not permanent. That will go out there kind of as needed for whatever we needed to send messaging out for on the road.
And then are the posts semi-permanent or permanent, or how do you think about mounting the posts?
The post, and here's a picture of them, of how they look. So I would say semi-permanent. If we never had the need to move them, then I guess they would technically be permanent, but we could pull them up, again, because they're solar powered, they're not hardwired in anything. They could be relocated if needed, or taken down if needed. But I feel like, as long as the community association has those up there, and as long as we have an issue with speeding on the parkway, they would be good to have.
The image of the trailer.
Yeah, this is the trailer. It's really similar to the trailer that the county park puts up in the median. It's a smaller size than that one, but same concept. Trailer mounted. It's got the capability to it's got pre-programmed over 200 types of messaging, but then we could also put our own messaging in there. And again, that's solar powered too. So everything is really accessible, relocatable, in and out as we need to set it up.
So 3 signs and 1 trailer, is that what I understand?
Yes, sir. And then the speed
Sense of
boxes.
where you'd want to mount these right now?
A couple of places. So one would go on Beachwalker Drive, maybe closer to the crosswalk between Duneside and Inlet Cove, potentially, but that could be talked about. And then, as we mentioned before, one as you're exiting the gate, just to kind of manage the speed of the traffic for that merge, and then one as you are more so maybe approaching Little Rabbit Lane, just because that was an area that we've had some concerns from residents about. But again, we could relocate those if needed, or if we think they're working really well, we like where they're at, maybe we could purchase another one later on down the road. But for right now, that's the idea.
You picked the 3 locations that would come to my mind, and we might want to consider a 4th, just as you're coming out of Freshfields, because that stretch there along Cassique tends to get pretty fast.
Yeah,
If these are effective, we can always add. We don't want kind of sign pollution as well, too much. And where are the principal issues? Certainly, if we ever deal with any, connectivity, pedestrian and bicycle connectivity to here and across Oliver Creek, and going across either Seabrook Island Road or Keel Island Parkway, then we would certainly want to consider other options then.
Since we're on the topic, and I don't want to pull us down a rabbit hole, and we could talk about it later sometime, I have wondered how that throughway in front of Cacique, that speed limit was determined. It does seem like maybe it could be a higher speed limit, but I don't know what the considerations were with that. Where you leave Freshfields after the traffic circle until you get to the bridge, basically.
You're suggesting?
I'm wondering if the speed is too low, considering the roadway.
I think it was 45 and was lowered to 35 like 6 or 7 years ago. Does that right, Brian?
It does sound right. Maybe 40, but.
And there's probably a reason that happened, and I'm just not aware of it, but.
I think it's just because we've had historically a lot of speeding on that road. It was more traffic calming.
Part of the concern, I think, is someone who ingresses and egresses Cacique a fair amount. One of the concerns is traffic, if you're taking a left out of Cacique to Freshfields Village, it can be problematic, depending, and particularly traffic coming just around the curve. And if people are going, you said it at 45, then they're going 50, 55, and
Human nature.
Something to think about. It seems like the way I heard you, everything is other than Beach Walker, the other two are exiting the island.
One's exit, one's entering. We'll have one exiting the island just past the main gate, and then one as you're approaching the Mingo curve inbound.
Okay.
In that general kind of area.
To slow people down coming in.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
and before you get to the Mingo Point entrance exit, and before you get to the curve in Little Rabbit.
Right. So, somewhere between the bridge and Mingo Point egress.
Perfect.
And something later we might want to consider, I like that we're getting a device to collect data. I don't know if that would require somebody to have any kind of training on how to analyze and use the data.
It's really user friendly. So you'll bring that box back and you'll plug it in straight to your computer and it'll populate a data on a spreadsheet. And it'll just tell you times, volume, speed for every vehicle that went by that area. So really easy to dissect once we have that information digitized.
Don't need a traffic engineering degree. Okay, good.
Not there yet, but
there
we're
yet.
working on it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion or move that we approve the staff recommendation to acquire these speed monitoring devices.
I'll second that.
This was great. Any other discussion before we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Brian, thank you.
Thank you all.
That was a good presentation, thanks.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Chairman's report is next on the agenda item, if I have the right agenda this time. Dorada, do you want to start?
I can go with my report.
Yep.
Thank you. So I have the budget report through end of November. And as of the end of November, our total revenues were about $6.9 million, which is about 14% higher than it was for the first 5 months last year. And about 44% of the current year budget. The revenues are pretty much in line with the budget, with the exception of a couple of items. So the business license revenue is gonna continues to show an increase compared to the budget and to the last year, and this is mostly related to the higher number of licenses issued this year than last year, and probably coming from a better enforcement of business licenses. The environmental services fee are higher than last year, but that's because the cost increased, and we also increased the fees charging the residents. Those two positive variances are offset by a negative variance in the building permits, but this is just temporary for this month. Because we had, last year we collected the one-time revenue for the beach walker project, and we actually had to refund that revenue, that permit, but we collected it back in December, which is a little higher. When you look at just the permits itself, even though we issued less permits, but because of the increasing cost of permits that was approved, the new fee schedule was approved beginning of this fiscal year, our revenues are higher.
Gerardo, right, do we have a sense how that will affect our revenues if it were same number of permits, same type of permits year over year with the change in the increase? Did we do that analysis?
I can do that. So we're planning to have a budget review with the mayor, with the chairman next week, and that's what I was going to schedule. So I can add it to my analysis because that's one of the items to look at the revenues and where we're going to end up this year. But I can look at that and
It'd be
and
nice
have
to
it
know
ready.
whether that's going to be significant or just
Sure.
marginal or what it would be.
Yes.
Okay, thank
I
you.
can do that. And then I'll share with the rest of the council. The expenditures are at 4.8 million, which is about 670,000 higher than last fiscal year, and about 33% of the current year budget. They pretty much all in line with the budget too, with the exception that we've seen an increase in the public safety or off-duty deputies. They've been working about was it like about 1,500 more hours for this first month than compared to last year. So I guess the increase in the hourly rate was attractive, and we got a much better coverage. And another item that is higher, significantly higher than last year, is the waste management, but that's because of a new contract with Trident. The rest of the expenditures are pretty much within the budget, and again, we'll look at them closer when we have the budget 6-month budget review.
Can I ask a question? This may be a conversation for another time. But since you flagged, you mentioned the off-duty deputy increase, how do we measure the value and the return on our investment in that? How do we know that we're getting what we think we're getting? What are the metrics for that?
We only measure value. Yeah, they clock in and out.
Excellent question. We had retained a consultant to look at a range of public safety and law enforcement services related issues. The principal responsibility or objective of that exercise was to gather data and to engage in a comprehensive needs assessment and gap analysis to try to determine exactly those kinds of issues. Unfortunately, thus far, we haven't received that type of analysis that at least I had been expecting. I think the prior council, when he initiated this process, was expecting. The question is, are we going to be able to get that or not? But that is part of a longer conversation that we do need to have about the efficacy of public safety resources on the island and the cost-benefit analysis. We no longer have a contract with the sheriff's office and haven't for the past, is it a year and a half now, or 8 months? Yeah. But I'm saying, was that April of 23 or was it April of May of 23 for full-time on-island coverage? But we've had in place an off-duty contract with the Charleston County Sheriff's Office that has actually expired by its terms as of the end of this year, that we have requested and there's an opportunity to fill two, basically, full-time. It's essentially full-time. It's off-duty, but for each shift over a 24-hour period. We've been averaging about 800 hours of coverage a month, and one reason why you see this increase in numbers. And then the question, I think, a legitimate question is, wholly apart from whether we are interested in pursuing a new on-duty contract for coverage on island, we need to better understand what the newly elected sheriff's coverage issues are broadly, as to whether it makes sense to have 2 deputies 24/7 on island in addition to the normal coverage that Charleston County provides to Kiowa Island, Seabrook, and Johns Island. I don't know if we need 2+ deputies in the middle of the night, every night. Do we need 2+ deputies during the day, every single day, or not? Or should we focus more on peak periods and things like that? So I think those are legitimate questions, and that's something that needs to be part of this ongoing assessment.
Thank you, Mayor Belt. And that was both a refresh and some added information that I wasn't aware of, so that was very helpful. It made me think that there's high expectations with the new sheriff. Promises and expectations made. It'd be interesting to see what the reality is going to be.
Well, we are in the process of scheduling a meeting with HENA staff. He's volunteered to do that. He gets sworn in today. Today?
Yesterday? This was yesterday.
I actually think he had indicated to me it was this morning. And I said, well, we have Ways and Means and Council, so I can't join that. But obviously, he's very familiar with this area. I was at the KICA board meeting yesterday, and there was discussion of the top two KICA security officials have left KICA to go work for the sheriff. So obviously, his leadership team, not only he, but his leadership team has great familiarity with the needs here. One of the things we need to better understand, and we're trying to get data on, is what is the incidence of criminal activity on Kiowa Island or its environs that necessitates custodial arrest authority. Because we obviously do have a lot of security personnel who can enforce municipal code. They can enforce Kiowa Island rules and regulations. They can enforce, ordinances on the beach, but they lack custodial arrest authority. And the question is, what is the need, the gap between enforcement of rules and regulations and our current ability to do that versus when do you need that extra custodial arrest authority? I believe the data showed, we can talk about this further, I know we're a little digressing, but that there were, I think, 82 criminal-related, categorized as calls on Kiowa Island over the course of a year. Now, and if you look at the list of what falls under that, not clear how much of that was, actually criminal activity, and we're trying to get a better handle on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget report?
I was just going to add one thing. I think your question, the predominant, and correct me, Mayor, if I'm wrong, the predominant activity by the deputies now is traffic enforcement. By far, that's the main.
Well,
is there more to it than that, or is
it? So, interestingly enough, and I try to take the opportunity to, if I see them walking around on weekends when they're here, or if they're parked, pull over and chat with them. Most of the deputies, particularly the off-duty deputies, any of the regular patrol folks, they don't have radar guns. So unless they're trailing you, they're not traffic enforcement. They're not traffic control. If they see you rolling through a stop sign, that's a visual, they can do that. So I would say the vast majority of coverage is not actual traffic, or at least speed enforcement. And they can actually only enforce speed limits on the behind the gate if specifically requested to do so by the community association, because those are privately owned roads.
Yeah, obviously, police departments think traffic enforcement's good too, because it's revenue, and you see them out zipping. I think, and I would like to better understand as we pursue this conversation, the risk model of the likelihood of something happening that requires police presence and the impact, and what's the response time? And, how close do we want somebody persistently here during what times a day?
Yep.
For different scenarios?
That was all part of what was intended to be addressed.
And there's a seasonality effect to it, too.
There is.
Now, with speeding, again, a digression, this is outside our jurisdiction. My view is the most prevalent and dangerous speeding activity is right out over here, up and down Betsy Carson
Probably right.
Parkway. One other question, Dorota.
Yes, Mayor.
The business, environmental service fees or waste management. I was interested that the increase was more, in revenue exceeded the expenses. I'm trying to understand why that is, because typically
So, yes.
it's almost a pass-through,
Yes.
except for the amount of our subsidy. So I would think that
correct.
revenue would always be less than expenses.
Correct. The only thing, this is only 4 months of expenditures. It's not 5 months. So we are behind. So if you're looking percentage-wise, that, if the revenues are that much higher, the expenditure should. So we only, even though it's through November, but we not billed for November until like half
So
December.
Well, if I can just say,
It's not.
based on this question, I think the question would be, the reason why potentially the revenues are higher is because when we bill, we've already collected the
timing.
revenue.
It's a
It's a
timing
timing
issue.
issue, but the expense
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
is
yeah.
not. So that's why, but pretty soon it's probably going to.
And remind me, it's in here, but our total budget for waste management is $2 million in expenses, revenue, it's 1.8, is that right? So our subsidy, total subsidy is about half of is about $1 million?
Yeah, no, because in that number, it's not just, well, there's another 100,000, there is a beach. Well, okay, you can, it's not $1 million, it's less than that, but it's about 800,000, that's what the subsidy is.
Okay.
Because the cost also includes the Charleston County, what do you call it, recycling fees. There is some additional fees, not only Trident, included in that number,
In the expense line?
in expense line,
Okay,
correct.
okay. So, but, typically, you could consider any waste management services, we bring it in and we pay,
Yeah.
we charge and then we pay the waste management company. And you could make it a complete pass-through. We do not. We subsidize, and the amount of the subsidy is about $800,000 or something.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Which line's the revenue line associated with that?
So the subsidy itself it's not shown so the mayor was comparing the revenue, the environmental services, that's the revenue in the revenue section.
Okay.
And the waste management in the expense, that's our expense related to it.
Okay, thanks.
Is there a reason they are labeled differently?
No, we just label them that way, but we can
For the
rename.
future, I think we, number one, label them consistently, but I think it would be helpful to perhaps break down the fact that there are slightly different elements, expense elements on waste management. Some that are.
That one is the contract, one there is additional. I can do that. I can break it down. For like the more of a budget analysis, like when we do work on a budget, I do more detail. This was before the council, like to see it more in a summary, but we can break down the items that you're asking for.
So something like you have down at the very bottom where you have capital outlays
Yes.
and you have building
Sure.
vehicles, like that.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
And why is 5 months significant? Do we pay it the 6th month? Is that why that's?
We do every month.
every month. So we do November, I do the prior month, so I close the month usually by the 10th of the next month. So now we're doing November. We review every month. So next month, we're gonna review through December.
But you'd said something about, or maybe Stephanie said that we're in the 5th month, not the 6th month, so we'll.
No, this was just 5 months because
okay.
we started July. Our fiscal year starts in July. So this is through November is 5 months of our fiscal year. So there is really no significant
And you've got
measure.
revenue to expense.
Oh,
Okay.
so the revenue, so we bill in July. So a lot of our revenues are seasonal. So we pretty much collect, I would say 70% in July. Then in November, we send a reminder for those that came back for the winter. And then we get another batch so that's where we usually get in those 2 months, majority of our garbage fees revenues. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Thank you, Dorota.
Thank you.
The only thing I have is, and it's really, we could take this offline, but as we go through the budgeting process, there's a couple things where we want to break out more detail, just like we just talked about insurance. And we can go through that offline, but that's really the only thing I want, so we can really drill down into some specific issues as we go forward. But other than that, that's all I had. Citizen comments, still none. Committee members?
No, Mr. Chairman?
I guess I'll say it. It's interesting that we've had citizen comments in the past when we've been lagging having this committee, but we're not seeing citizens coming to it. But
Well, it's a quiet time of year too, right?
it is
now.
a quiet time of year, but not that I'm asking for it, but I encourage it.
Anything else from either of you? All right, with that, we're adjourned.